Manufacturing defects.
10 Most Brutal Torture Techniques. Number 10. Given his name, it should come as no surprise that this was the most favored method of execution by Vlad the Impaler. In 15th century Romania, the victim was forced to sit on a sharp and thick pole. When the pole was then raised upright, the victim was left to slide down the pole with their own weight. It could take the victim 3 days to die using this method, and it has been said that Vlad once did this to 20,000 people, all while enjoying a meal. Number 9. Tub. Popularly known as the punishment of sitting in the tub, the convicted person would be placed in a wooden tub with only their head sticking out. After that, the executioner would paint their faces with milk and honey, and soon, flies would begin to feed on them. The victim was also fed regularly and would end up swimming in their excrement. After a few days, maggots and worms would devour their body as they decayed alive. Number 8. Sicilian Bull, also known as the Sicilian Bull, was designed in ancient Greece. A solid piece of brass was cast with a door on the side that could be opened and latched. The victim would be placed inside the bull and a fire set underneath it until the metal became literally yellow as it was heated. The victim would then be slowly roasted to death, all while screaming in agonizing pain. The bull was purposely designed to amplify these screams and make them sound like the bellowing of a bull. Number 7. Related to impalement, Judas Cradle is a gruesome punishment entailed having the victim sit on the pyramid-shaped cradle, after which they would be forced down on it by ropes with the intent of stretching the victim's orifice over a long period of time, slowly impaling them. To add to the overall humiliation, the victim was usually naked and the device was rarely washed, so if the torture did not kill you, the infection contracted from it would. Number 6. To dislocate every joint of the victim's body. The rack was believed to be the most painful form of medieval torture. This torture device was made out of a wooden frame with 2 ropes fixed to the bottom and the other 2 tied into the handle on top. Once the victim was bound and placed on top of the rack, the torturer would proceed to turn the handle. Eventually, the victim would be stretched till his limbs were dislocated. The torturers, however, just to make sure those limbs were indeed dislocated, would continue to turn the wheel until the limbs were completely torn off the victim's body. Number 5. One of the torture devices during the Spanish Inquisition, Spanish donkey, is probably one of the most gruesome of them all. The victim is put astride, naked, on a donkey-like apparatus, which is actually a vertical wooden board with a sharp V-wedge on top of it. After that, the torturer would add varying weights to the victim's feet until finally the wedge sliced through the victim's body. Number 4. Cheap and effective way to torture someone was with the use of rats. There were many variants, but the most common was to force a rat through a victim's body as a way to escape. It involved having a cage with one open side strapped against the victim's body. It would then be filled with large rodents and a heating element which would be placed on the other side of the cage. The rodents' natural instinct led them to flee the intense heat. In order to escape, they would burrow through the victim's body with fatal results. Number 3. Also known as the Catherine wheel, is a torture device used to slowly kill the victim. First, the victim's limbs were tied to the spokes of a large wooden wheel which would then be slowly revolved as the torturer simultaneously smashed the victim's limbs with an iron hammer to break them in numerous places. As the bones were broken, the victim would be left on the wheel to die or could be placed on top of a tall pole so the birds could feed on their flesh while still alive. This was slow indeed, since it could have taken days before the victims would die from dehydration. Sometimes, a coup de grace, blow of mercy, was employed by ordering the executioner to deal a fatal blow on the victim's chest and stomach to end their agony. Number 2. Torture is a method where the victim is hung upside down so that the blood will rush to their heads and keep them conscious during the long torture. The torturer would then saw through the victims' bodies until they were completely sawed in half. Most were cut up only in their abdomen to prolong their agony. Number 1. Medieval times, the penalty for high treason in England was to be hanged, drawn, and quartered in public, and though it was abolished in 1814, it has been responsible for the death of thousands of people. In this torture technique, the victim is dragged in a wooden frame called a hurdle to the place of execution. They would then be hanged by the neck for a short period of time until they are near death, followed by disembowelment and castration, where the entrails and genitalia are burned in front of the victim. The victim would then be divided into 4 separate parts and beheaded. Thanks for the love. Keep watching and support us by subscribing to our channel. Don't forget to like, share and comment.